Before we start, I just wanted you to know that the Dino Dungeon demo is now playable in the browser. Play with a keyboard or a gamepad, and you can also put it in full screen mode. Also, you could
wishlist on
Steam.
How do you take a single player game and turn it into a multiplayer game? The answer is very simple. Let me explain. Here's all your code. You get it all together. Get all your code nice and collected. Get all of every little scrap of crappy code. Take it, bring it up. Char slide to the left. Take it, hold it up like Simba, and what's that? Dunk it! The next step is actually very necessary. Take your 99% ethanol that you stowed away, douse that thing, get your lighter, and stand back and let that shit flame. Step 2. Make a co-op game. When I started making Dino Dungeon, the whole idea was the player will be able to control multiple characters to solve the levels. Nino, this looks like a co-op game. Make it a co-op game. So today, we take a single player game and we turn it into a local multiplayer game. Bethesda has left the chat, and so my journey of misfortune begins. Here's the plan. We will use Unity's input system to create local multiplayer. Very recently, the new Unity input system has reached version 1.0, which means that it's a big PP feature, no longer a small PP feature. Here's the problem. I developed Dino Dungeon in Unity 2018, and if we find the input system, we see it is still version 0.small pp, but I need version big pp. And if we look at the Unity docs, we see that version 1.0 is only available in Unity 2019. God help me. Do you remember the first devlog and what happened when I tried to upgrade the version of Unity? Everything broke. How do we create local multiplayer in Unity without using the input system? We implement it ourselves. Said no one. That, we're not doing that. Let's roll the dice and update the Unity version. Hold on to your butts. By some miracle, when I updated the Unity version, the game didn't break. I'm amazed. I truly am. So, let's try installing the big PP Unity input system, eh? And yeah, that broke it. So what does all this red stuff mean? If you've ever tried to make a Unity game, you're probably familiar with input.getButtonDown. Why don't we just take that and put it in the dumpster fire too? That's some boomer code. Now we're writing for the Zoomers. And now that the game is both unplayable and cannot read any input, it is time to learn how to implement the new Unity input system. Bracky's tutorial was out of date. We'll just take that and we'll just put that in the dumpster fire too. Let's just hit pause right there. I made this joke before Brackies and his team announced that they will be leaving YouTube. It's just a joke, and I will miss Brackies and his team very much, and you wouldn't be watching this video if he hadn't made tutorials. Please don't cancel me! Samyam had a much better tutorial that's way more recent. Here at the Cult of Nino, we stan Samyam. The whole idea is to take the player controller and separate the player controller from the input. Now, the input and the player controller are separate things. They can each be easily modified independent of one another. They are no longer tightly coupled, and because of that, they are now cohesive. There, I just saved you 3 years in tuition fees for computer science. You can thank me on Patreon. So, after watching Samyam's input system tutorial, I got Dino Dungeon working again with the new Unity input system 1.0 Big PP. Now that the input system is working, implementing local multiplayer is a real option. Broken Knights has a few tutorials on how to do just that. It is the only resource on the internet on how to make a co-op game using the new input system, but it is not for the faint of heart. This is a big change to the game, and many things will break. Instead of trying to shoehorn the co-op gameplay system in this video into Dino Dungeon when I only just got Dino Dungeon working again, I made a test project. It's a very basic top-down test project. The reason I did this is so I had a separate project that I could mess around with, and it doesn't matter if I break. The whole point of this is to acquire knowledge. I followed Broken Knight's tutorial in hopes that I could have 2 squares moving around on the screen, each one controlled by a different player. I did the whole thing. The player join screen. When a player joins, there's a new panel. When the players are ready, on the next screen, there are 2 squares. And then, it didn't work. I managed to spawn 2 players, but only one of them could move. I spent actually quite a lot of time going back and forth through the code, watching the tutorial again, and I just couldn't understand what I did wrong. I actually felt really defeated. Like, it really hurt. I made a new friend recently on the other side of the world called J-Ray, and J-Ray said, "You see, Nilesh, this is what code is supposed to look like. However, your code looks like this." It was very apparent that I was trying to implement something that I hadn't taken the time to understand conceptually. So, instead of going blind into the tutorial again with the code and trying to write the code and watch the tutorial at the same time, I made notes. I made color-coded notes with emojis. I'm dyslexic, so color coding, or in this case, emoji coding, really helps visualize the problem. And then, my 2 brain cells aligned, and I knew what I had to do. I just needed to indent the poop. That's what you just indent the poop. And lo and behold, both the squares started moving. One controlled with a keyboard, one controlled with a gamepad. It worked. I got co-op working. This was one small step for Dino Dungeon. One giant leap for my self-worth. We can now try to implement local multiplayer into Dino Dungeon. I am a fan of co-op join screens that look like moving out or even castle crashes. I like this layout a lot. I think it works very well, and I'm going to work towards that. So after a lot of elbow grease, we have the makings of a join screen. Let's get 2 players going, and the moment of truth, boom, 2 dinos being controlled independently. Now, let's talk about how this is going to work. When there's one player controls multiple dinosaurs by switching dinosaurs. If there are multiple players, they all need to be able to switch dinos, but they can only cycle to dinos that are available, as in, not controlled by another player. So basically, it's like a Lego game. There, I admitted it. I did a little bit more work on the join screen so that you can see the controller that you're using. Also, you can see the dino that you'll be spawned as. When all the players that have joined are ready, a countdown begins. But if a new player joins during the countdown is cancelled until they're ready and the countdown starts again. Once you're ready, you can't unready because you'll just annoy everyone, won't you? And then when the game starts, you can see your player number on the dinosaur that you're controlling. As it stands right now, the camera hasn't been changed, and the camera is just following player 1 right now, which means that the other characters can actually run off the screen. I know that we put a Bracky's video in the dumpster fire earlier, but hold up, he has a very good tutorial on how to make a camera that targets multiple things. His is 3D, so I had to do some work to get it to work with a 2D orthographical camera. It didn't work for a while, and then I realized it was because of my pixel perfect component. And once I removed my pixel perfect component, it worked. But without the pixel perfect component, you occasionally see these flickering artifacts between the tiles. I learned that if you make a pixel snap enabled material and apply that material to your tile map, the problem magically disappears. So now, the camera keeps all the dinos in the frame, but it would make more sense if the camera only targeted and focused on the dinosaurs that were enabled. It was actually just a couple lines of code. Basically, when the player changes character, I just need to hot swap which targets are important and which aren't. And then I had a working multi-target camera and co-op. I had a co-op game. This is basically how it needs to work, and it looks decent enough. I will say, maybe here I had the camera speed a little bit too high, so when I switched characters, everyone felt it very hard. I will likely make it smoother, but all in all, I have actually turned my single player game into a couch co-op local multiplayer game. I achieved a thing in 2020. Let me have this. I'm Dino, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. Join the cult in my Discord server. You can also simp Dino Dungeon on Patreon. And remember, smack that bell button so when I make something at my end, you receive it on the bell end. It's your bell end? That's me.